In a high-end restaurant, you can tell who truly holds power from the very first glance. But what happens when you judge someone solely based on your own assumptions? Can you make a grave mistake by misjudging a person? Imagine this. You're a server in an upscale restaurant, and you decide to judge a guest purely by their appearance. But then, an unexpected twist changes everything you thought you knew about the people around you. Have you ever wondered if you've been too quick to judge someone? Don't skip this story. You might realize something important about the way we perceive and treat one another in life. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe so you won't miss more surprising and inspiring stories like this one. Matthew Lee sat at an elegant dining table, blending in yet standing out in the most peculiar way. Unlike the meticulously groomed guests around him, tailored suits, designer handbags, and extravagant jewelry, Matthew wore a fitted black coat over a simple white shirt. But that was precisely what made him different. He didn't need to flaunt wealth or status because those who had truly reached the top, like Matthew, didn't crave attention. He was a man who had seen the world, someone who understood that power wasn't about outward opulence, but rather the quiet confidence that radiated from within. In the vibrant ambiance of the restaurant, where glasses clinked and soft conversations flowed, Matthew remained composed. Sitting among his colleagues, he listened to their stories and laughter, but his sharp eyes were always observant, quietly taking in everything around him. That was something only those with experience, who had endured life's challenges, could master. The chatter around him didn't distract him. Whether in this room or anywhere else, he always remained in control. And then a young waiter, Leo, approached, his gaze scanning, his mind making quick assessments. Leo, brimming with arrogance and his own unconscious biases, failed to recognize what set Matthew apart. To him, Matthew was just another ordinary diner, dressed too simply to be anyone of significance. Assuming he would be an easy customer to serve, Leo had no idea that he was about to make a mistake he could never take back. A careless remark from Leo would shift the entire dynamic, forcing Matthew to confront something unexpected, something that could change the way he saw the world. As Matthew processed the waiter's judgment, one thought lingered. Could unconscious bias, whether intentional or not, cause us to lose the chance to truly understand one another? Leo entered the restaurant with an air of confidence, his eyes sweeping across the room as if he had everything under control. The dim, elegant lighting reflected off sleek tuxedos and shimmering evening gowns. As a newly hired server, he was eager to make an impression in a world where power and wealth reigned supreme. Scanning the guests seated around the dining area, he quickly categorized them, assessing their importance with just a glance. Then his gaze landed on Matthew Lee. Leo's self-assurance grew. Matthew, in his well-fitted black coat and simple white shirt, didn't resemble the affluent clientele Leo was accustomed to serving. No expensive watch, no designer accessories. With a fleeting glance, Leo made his judgment. Matthew was not an important guest. That assumption solidified as Leo observed Matthew's quiet demeanor, his subtle humility, as if he didn't belong in a place like this. Smirking slightly, Leo approached the table, setting down the water glasses before adding a comment, his tone laced with subtle condescension. I hope you're all enjoying your steaks. This restaurant is the perfect place for those who enjoy indulging themselves. He paused, flicking his eyes toward Matthew, as if adding a little spice to his own narrative. You seem more like a salad kind of guy. For a brief moment, silence blanketed the table. The atmosphere shifted. Leo's words hung in the air, turning what had been a casual evening into something tense, something uncertain. Matthew remained expressionless, his gaze steady and unreadable, but razor-sharp. Leo, oblivious to the gravity of his misstep, continued his work as if nothing had happened. But slowly, unease crept into his gut. He couldn't pinpoint why, but the way people at the table glanced at each other, the unusual stillness in the room, it made him question himself. Had he made a mistake? Had his assumptions been completely wrong? Leo continued moving around the table, feeling satisfied with himself. He had just made a joke, a comment he thought would lighten the mood. "You look more like a salad guy," Leo said, chuckling as he set down the water glass. His words lingered in the air, as if he were trying to assert his wit, a playful jab at a customer who didn't quite fit the usual mold. But his smugness faded the moment he noticed Matthew's reaction. Matthew merely glanced up, his gaze sharp and composed, showing not even the slightest hint of emotion. No anger, no protest. He simply continued his meal, as if Leo's words had never been spoken. The silence unsettled Leo. A faint tension crept into the space, making the air around the table feel heavier. For a brief moment, Leo began to wonder if he had gone too far. An odd sensation spread through him, and he couldn't understand why a man like Matthew remained so unfazed, not offended, not reactive, just calm. But this wasn't indifference. It was a quiet confidence, an unwavering composure that Leo simply couldn't grasp. The other guests at the table resumed their conversations, yet Leo felt strangely out of place, as if the dim candlelight no longer provided warmth, but instead amplified the weight of the silence. Have you ever wondered about the confidence of a person? How does someone remain unshaken by careless remarks, as if words from others hold no power over them? Matthew's silence wasn't just an absence of response. It was a message Leo could feel but couldn't decipher. A creeping sense of failure, of helplessness, began to seep into Leo's mind. He had judged too quickly, and now he had to face the consequences of his impatience. Leo stood there, casually observing the guests at the table, his pride swelling after what he believed was a clever joke. "You look more like a salad guy," he had said, smirking with confidence. The guests exchanged glances, seemingly unbothered, just a harmless remark, nothing more. Leo failed to notice something crucial: the silence. Matthew continued his meal, his sharp gaze steady, unaffected. It all happened in mere seconds, but in Leo's mind, it didn't mean anything. "It's nothing, no big deal," he assured himself, convinced that his joke had no real impact. He didn't realize that his arrogance was quietly building an invisible wall between him and Matthew. The words he had dismissed as harmless were now a small but deep scratch in the surface of their interaction, one that Leo couldn't yet see. But the unsettling part was Matthew's indifference. He didn't react, didn't push back, and that made everything feel off. The guests at the table soon returned to their conversations. No one seemed to notice the tension, except Leo. As he moved from table to table, occupied with his work, an unfamiliar feeling settled within him. It wasn't the satisfaction of delivering a clever joke. It was a heavy silence, a quiet discomfort that he couldn't quite name. Leo began questioning himself. Had he been disrespectful? Had his thoughtless words actually meant nothing to Matthew? The answer wasn't immediate. Instead, it came in waves of doubt, of realization, of regret. He had underestimated how even the smallest actions, the most casual words, could make someone feel diminished. His pride started to crack as he realized he had judged a man solely by appearance, without ever understanding who he really was. Every step Leo took through the restaurant felt heavier now. He wasn't just regretting the joke. He was starting to feel uneasy about himself. And the question that weighed on his mind was no longer, "Did I make a mistake?" It was, "How do I fix this?" As the dinner came to an end, the atmosphere in the restaurant grew lighter, but something different lingered in the air. Matthew Lee stood up, his gaze cold yet commanding. Leo remained by the table, noticing, perhaps for the first time, how people around them were paying attention to Matthew's every movement. There was an unusual silence, an unspoken shift in the energy of the room. The attention of other diners seemed to gravitate toward Matthew, and for the first time that evening, Leo felt genuinely unsettled. Then, Matthew reached into his leather wallet and pulled out a sleek black credit card. In that moment, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. A sudden shift, subtle, yet undeniable. Eyes from every corner of the restaurant flickered toward the black card, a symbol of status that only a select few could possess. The once indifferent glances turned into quiet admiration and silent respect. Leo's eyes widened as the realization hit him like a blow. Matthew Lee was not just an ordinary man. He was not just another customer. He was someone who existed on a level that Leo had never even considered. The weight of that truth crashed over Leo, shattering his earlier assumptions in an instant. Every judgment he had made, every condescending remark, now felt painfully foolish. His smug confidence crumbled. The joke he had made, the careless words he had spoken, felt ridiculous now. Regret burned in his chest. Leo stood frozen, unable to look away from the black card, a wave of shame washing over him. How had he misjudged so badly? Had his words truly disrespected a man he knew nothing about? The regret deepened with each passing second, the weight of his mistake pressing down on him like an anchor. This wasn't just about a single moment. This was a lesson about perception, about the consequences of assuming too much. As the black card gleamed under the dim lighting, Leo felt as if the world had slowed around him. The usual sounds of the restaurant faded into the background, and for a brief moment, everything seemed to stop. People were watching. Matthew was being recognized. Leo could feel the shift in the room, the subtle but undeniable acknowledgement of Matthew's presence. A hushed silence settled. The admiration in the eyes of other diners was unmistakable. For Leo, it felt like the ground beneath him had just disappeared. Then a thought struck him. Matthew Lee, where have I heard that name before? A creeping sense of unease spread through him. His mind scrambled for an answer, and then clarity struck like a bolt of lightning. Tech founder, industry leader, visionary, Matthew Lee, a name frequently featured in technology magazines, in news articles about innovation, in discussions about the world's most successful entrepreneurs. And now, he was standing right in front of Leo. The realization was like a slap to the face. It took less than a minute, but everything had changed. Matthew wasn't who Leo had assumed. He wasn't some low-level businessman. He wasn't someone lacking confidence or out of place, as Leo had so arrogantly believed. Matthew Lee was the founder of one of the most successful tech companies in the world, a man with influence, a man whom Leo had only read about but never imagined he would meet in person. A wave of humiliation surged through him. The joke he had made, so casual, so thoughtless, now felt like a deep scar on his own integrity. Leo's stomach churned. What was I thinking? He questioned himself, cursing his own short-sightedness. This wasn't just a small mistake, it was a profound misjudgment, and a lesson he would never forget. As Leo stood there, unable to meet Matthew's gaze, one thought echoed louder than the rest. He needed to change. He needed to learn, to truly see people for who they were, rather than through the lens of his own assumptions. The shame was overwhelming, but within it, there was also something else, a flicker of hope. Hope that moving forward, he could do better, that he would do better. Leo stood frozen, his chest tight with embarrassment and regret. Have you ever felt the ground collapse beneath you the moment you realized your mistake? That was exactly what Leo was experiencing now. All his arrogance, his misplaced confidence, it had vanished in an instant, leaving behind only an empty void within him. The sight before him unsettled him. Matthew Lee. That name wasn't just a name in the tech industry, it was a symbol of success, a name that commanded respect. And now, Leo could only replay his careless words in his mind, words that now felt like deep wounds he had inflicted upon himself. How could I have been so blind? He thought, unable to meet anyone's gaze. The jokes he had made, the moments of misplaced pride, now felt like dark stains on his conscience, gnawing at him piece by piece. But this was more than just a lesson in humility. This was a twist of fate that shattered his entire perception of how he judged people. For the first time, Leo saw beyond the surface. The people around him weren't just their appearances. They had stories, value, depth, things he had completely overlooked. And now, that realization hit him harder than any reprimand ever could. He felt small. He felt ashamed. But at the same time, he felt hope. Hope that he could learn. Hope that he could change. That he could start seeing people not for what they wore, but for who they truly were. He couldn't undo his mistake, but at least he now carried a lesson he would never forget. Leo remained motionless, still grappling with the weight of his realization. The restaurant had gone quiet, and then footsteps. Elijah, the restaurant manager, approached. Leo turned hesitantly. Elijah's expression wasn't filled with anger, but disappointment. A quiet, measured disappointment that somehow felt heavier than any scolding. Each step Elijah took carried the weight of understanding, as if he had seen everything unfold and knew this was the moment Leo needed to face the truth. "Leo," Elijah began, his voice calm yet firm, "how would you feel if people judged you solely by your appearance?" The words struck like a sharp gust of wind, shaking Leo from his thoughts. For the first time, he felt the weight of his actions from the other side. He remained silent, nodding slowly, his throat tight. Elijah continued, "We can't judge people by what they wear or how they look. Everyone has value, not because of their status, but because of the way we treat each other." The tension in the air thickened as Elijah's words sank in. This wasn't just about tonight. This was about how Leo had been seeing the world all along. A lump formed in his throat. "I was wrong," he admitted to himself. But Elijah wasn't done. "Don't let this mistake define you, Leo. Let it be a chance to grow, to become someone you can be proud of." It wasn't just a reassurance. It was a challenge, a call to be better, to step out of his own limited perspective, to truly see people for who they were. Elijah gave him a small, knowing smile, one not of condemnation, but of understanding. Remember, we all have the ability to change and grow if we're willing to see things differently. Leo met Elijah's gaze, and for the first time in his life, he felt something real, not judgment, not pride, but understanding and respect. In that moment, something shifted within him. This wasn't just an uncomfortable encounter he would forget tomorrow. This was a turning point, a lesson in humility, empathy, and the power of seeing beyond the surface. And more than ever, he knew this was just the beginning of a new journey. Everything around him seemed to blur as Leo began to grasp the weight of Elijah's words. Elijah looked at him with patience, not with judgment, but with an understanding that Leo had never experienced before. "Leo," Elijah began, his voice deep yet steady, Sometimes we judge others too easily based on appearances, don't we? But have you ever wondered if you're missing out on the bigger stories they carry? The words cut through Leo's heart like a sharp blade, forcing him to confront himself. Elijah continued, "What you see in people isn't everything. Sometimes simple clothing is a sign of humility and quiet strength. The ones who change the world don't need to prove anything." A profound silence followed, and for the first time, Leo felt as if he was stepping into a different world, one where things weren't as simple as he had once believed. Regret flooded him. He had judged people based on shallow assumptions, never taking the time to truly see them. He thought back to all the faces he had overlooked, people he had dismissed as ordinary, people who now seemed far more than just strangers. They were individuals, each carrying a story worth respecting. Instead of seeing people for their appearance, Elijah continued, "See them for their values. It will not only help you grow, but it will change the way you see the world." The words felt like a wave washing away the darkness inside Leo, replacing it with a glimmer of hope. He finally understood. If he truly wanted to change, he had to learn to treat people based on who they were, not on what they wore. This wasn't an end. It was a new beginning. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, he wasn't afraid, because he was finally seeing the world differently. Later that night, Leo stood in front of a mirror, staring into his own eyes. Could he really change? Shame and regret still clung to him like a shadow, refusing to fade. The memory played in his mind over and over, the moment he had misjudged Matthew, the shift in the room when the truth was revealed, the way people had looked at him when they saw his mistake. His heartbeat quickened. Had he truly insulted someone he knew nothing about? Elijah's words echoed in his mind. "We need to change how we see people, Leo. Don't let appearances determine someone's worth." The words stung. They forced him to realize how blind he had been. Every assumption, every careless remark, each one had built a wall between him and the truth. And now, standing there, he felt the weight of all the missed opportunities to truly see people, to respect them, to understand them. A shift stirred deep within him, a realization that he couldn't go on living behind these shallow judgments. He wanted to be better. He wanted to see beyond the surface. Life wasn't just about what he saw, it was about what he felt in others. Leo took a deep breath, staring himself down in the mirror. He couldn't change the past, but he could change the future. He could start by looking into people's eyes, by understanding them, by treating them with fairness, without bias, without assumptions. He promised himself he would never let arrogance blind him again. And as he stepped outside into the night, a quiet sense of hope filled his heart. This was his first step, a small step, but one that meant everything. He knew the road ahead was long, but with every step, he would become a better person. Next time, he wouldn't judge someone by their appearance. He would see them with understanding and respect. This story is a powerful lesson about never judging people by their outward appearance. Leo's journey teaches us that hasty assumptions can lead to serious mistakes and hurt those we don't even know. Every person carries a unique story and intrinsic value, and the most important thing we can do is to see people for who they truly are. When Leo realized his mistake and began to change, he didn't just gain knowledge, he opened his heart to the world with empathy. This story also highlights the importance of self-awareness and learning from our failures, because it's through these lessons that we truly grow and discover what really matters in life. Thank you for watching. If you found this video interesting or enjoyable, please show your support by giving it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow and reach more amazing viewers like you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on our future uploads. Your support means the world to us and keeps us motivated to create even better content for you.